Welcome back, Dr. Lotte. I'm so excited to have Dr. Lotte Valentine here as a guest on my podcast. And if you are a loyal listener, you know that I don't do as many podcasts as I used to. And hopefully, I have attracted some new people because we have so much wonderful information to share with you about Dr. Lotte. Now, a brief little bit about her. My favorite thing is that Dr. Lotte went to med school after 50 and wrote a book about it. And she also had several NDAs, which opened her psychic abilities. And she was an atheist, but then this happened and she's not. And she has done so much work. Her list of accomplishments is so long. You know, she has studied shamanism. She went to the Arthur Findlay College in England, which is the world's foremost college for the advancement of spiritualism and psychic sciences, but she's also studied trance healing. She is, oh my gosh, you've done so much, Dr. Lotte. I don't even know where to begin. What I read that I didn't know before is that you have postgraduate degrees in mold and mycotoxins, which I've been dealing with, sound protocol, bioidentical hormones, craniosacral therapy, emotional release technique, Corin specific technique and body talk. And that's all great. But you have created your own modalities. And I don't want to go into that any further because you know, and I'm so excited to learn about ancestral healing. So welcome, Dr. Lotte, to Ignite Your Spark.
Thank you so much. I love being back on the podcast too. We're going to have so much fun and
I
talk
know.
about ancestral healing and Kendraya. So this is going to be a great episode.
All right. I don't know if you recall, but I do start off and ask my guests, how do you ignite your spark?
I follow my heart. I follow my
Mm.
heart and I follow my intuition.
Great. That is brilliant because I'm learning to do that more. And when you reached out to be on my podcast again, it was an immediate yes. I just followed my heart and my intuition. And that's a really good reminder to everyone listening that if you don't get like the full body yes, then maybe it's not right. But when you tune in to your own intuition, your own inner knowing, then the yes is going to be heartfelt and it's meant to be. So I'm glad.
Yes.
Now,
And
Dr.
that's, I mean,
Lotte.
that's so important. And I think
Oh,
many times we let the mind get in the way, right? We start thinking, I don't know, is that really a good idea? And then we back out instead of saying, like you said, like go with the heart. Wow, I'm so excited about this. You
exactly.
know it's right because you can feel it.
I don't know. Mel Robbins has a book, The 5 Second Rule. And if you don't act on something within 5 seconds, bye bye, it goes away. And I really sort of believe that, you know, if you get a hit, if you don't act on it, someone else is going to get that hit and act on it, and you'll be left out. But anyway, I know if people are new to this and they are amazed by the fact that you went to med school after 50, talk a little bit about that before we go into what you have created, your NDAs. We don't have to go into the specifics. They can go listen to the other episode, but just sort of, was that a full body yes when it hit you?
Yes. It was a full body, yes. Yeah. So to briefly back up, I had the two near-death experiences. The first one was in the emergency room in 1992, and I was hemorrhaging to death. And I left my body and hovered above the body. And, there's no time on the other side. It's all peace. It's all beautiful. And it was all about love. That next day in the hospital, I started hearing the spirit world. And my sister-in-law had recently passed away. And I heard she was in the left corner of my ceiling and she said, everything is going to be okay. And I said to myself, because I had no belief system about the spirit world, about the afterlife, about religion. I mean, you name it. I was a complete atheist. You die, it's black, you're gone. That was my philosophy back then. So I'm lying in this hospital room thinking, am I losing it? Like, I can't tell anyone. They're going to think I'm nuts. So anyway, to make a long story short, I ended up with a bone marrow suppression, a blood disorder, and I got really sick. And I had a second near-death experience after about 2 years. And the second one, is really what activated my life path and why I'm doing the work today with ancestral healing and how I developed Kendraya. So let's just recap for like 1 minute. But during that second experience, I went to this place like out in outer space, and I was shown an image of like a silvery, glittery net around the earth. And I was told that everything on earth is connected to each other, but everything on earth is connected up to this web.
Mm.
And with that, I got sent back. But that is literally what has been driving my work with ancestral healing and the interconnectedness of everything, because we are so connected to our ancestors. And it's fascinating to see how things are repeating in our life. So we're going to get into that. But after those experiences, it was like activating my clairvoyance, my clairaudience, my clairsentience. And after 12 years, I had finally learned to listen to it. So in the beginning, I didn't even trust myself. So I would write things down on a piece of paper, because this is in the 1990s, and say, the spirit world told me this, or somebody's talking to me and they're telling me this. And then 3 days later, when it would happen, and I would just say to myself, oh, it's just a deja vu. This can't be real, right? I
Right.
would go back and say, well, I did write it down in my book 3 days ago. So after 12 years, I'm a slow learner this way. Took me 12 years to trust this. So because I came from, I was so scientific. And so after 12 years, I get information. I know to stop, to listen, and to take the advice. So I was on my computer and I was was thinking I got to go back to work, and I don't want to go back. I was a program and systems analyst in my youth for IBM, and that was left behind. And I knew I had to work with healing and people. And I was looking for something on the internet, and I found this naturopathic medical school. And then I realized it's a real medical school. I said, I can't do that. I'm in my 40s. This is nuts. I would have to go back, take all the prerequisite classes. So I just closed my computer, went to the kitchen. And so the spirit world drops in on me and says, you have to go to medical school, and you have to be a naturopathic doctor. You have to combine like the old and the new, or east and west, and you have to write 2 books. No, wait, 3. And that message about writing the books, I've gotten that from 4 professional mediums, 2 in the United States and 2 in Europe. And it's always the exact same message. You are to write 2 books. No, wait, 3. So I'm always like, what's with the no, wait, 3? Is that a different book? Anyway, so I literally enrolled in the prereq classes to go to medical school that week. I was in school 2 weeks later. I was already, because it was that time of the year, it was, August. And I had to start from the beginning with advanced placement high school biology, because I was a business major in college. I had gone to school, high school in Europe, so I didn't have any of the right classes. So I had to start with that, work my way up, and then bio 1, bio 2, chemistry
Oh,
1, chemistry 2, organic chemistry 1,
oh,
organic chemistry 2. I mean, it took forever, because they're all in succession, right? So
oh.
like 4 or 5 years later, I did it. And then my kids were still at home. So then I said, well, I have to do something while I wait for them to grow up. So then I went back and I worked in cancer detection in the biotech industry,
Hmm.
first as a sales rep, and I had like eight states in the United States. And then I became the national sales manager. So my last year there, I was a national sales manager, making spreadsheets every day, making sure all the people were hitting quota. And then I went to med school.
Oh,
So I mean, we all calm down, and it's interesting now looking back, because all the things that we do in life, we do for a reason. And it all serves a purpose later on, because now I'm running my own business. I'm really good with spreadsheets. I'm really good with QuickBooks. Because the things I did before taught me all those things. So now when I have my own business, I just brought all those tools with me, right? But it's interesting because sometimes when we were working or doing things, we think, oh, I don't like this. This is the wrong thing. But it's probably serving some kind of purpose that we can't yet see.
yeah.
Because when we look back, things make sense typically.
Absolutely. And I also feel like when you're speaking, our purpose is different at different times of our life. And yet it is all leading us, because you and I are of the same era.
Yeah.
it's leading us to what we are to do now. Now, not everyone our age is still reinventing themselves or doing things,
Hmm.
but that's okay as long as they're happy and their soul is moving forward. But your purpose at those times was to provide for your family, was to learn those things. It was different at different times. Of course, you're brilliant. I know that because I think of going back to school in my 40s and I go, no, I went to improv school. All I did was learn how to further my acting career, but that's okay. That was my
Yeah.
path, not
Yeah.
yours. And I am curious so much about ancestral healing. And for many reasons, and I don't know if you remember this, but I was adopted. And I found out I was adopted at 22. So when you talk about ancestral healing, I'm like, well, who am I healing? Am I healing my birth parents, that ancestor, or am I healing my adoptive parents' ancestors? And I don't know, that's just a question I have about ancestral healing. And then I want to know, I know why, but let's talk about why you created this and why you feel it is important for us at this time
Mhm.
to do ancestral healing.
Yeah. So, when you talk about, let's start with the first one.
Yeah.
Why, you were adopted, and which ancestors am I really healing? I'm
Yeah.
going to say you're healing both because
Okay.
you're connected to your biological parents because you came from your biological parents, you carry their DNA. Then you were raised in this other family that loved you and took care of you and raised you, right? You're connected to them. So we're connected, in different ways. And when you look at how we're connected, the people that won the Nobel Prize in Physics, I think it was 2023, there were three physicists that won the Nobel Prize. And what they proved was that when you have two particles, let's say you have two oranges. You have two oranges in your house, and I have two oranges in my house, right? And we're in different states in the United States, but we're really good at throwing oranges. So we both throw one orange, and our oranges both land in Las Vegas. Okay. So here's my orange lands in Las Vegas next to your orange on the strip. So one orange from your pair has met one orange from my pair on the Las Vegas strip. So they're now connected. Okay. We get that because they met. My orange met your orange. But the interesting part that they proved with this was that the orange that I still have in my house and the orange that you left in your house, they are now connected
Yeah.
because they were together, and then one of the oranges, one pair, met, but
Mhm.
that made the other ones connected. So this is how they got the Nobel Prize in physics. I mean, when you think about that, I mean, it just jives with me because what I see and when I work with ancestral healing, because we are so much more connected, it's like we live inside this divine dynamic system where everything, in a system, in a dynamic system, everything affects everything else.
Yeah.
So when you think of how, if you go into a room with angry people and you say, wow, all these people are angry, I'm going to bring some sunshine. So here comes Kim. And you walk in and you're like, hello, everyone. And I'm spreading some cheer and joy. And after 5 minutes, everybody is kind of synced up with your enthusiasm and they're no longer mad, right?
Yeah.
So now everybody is happy because they're connecting to you. So see how just that one person, people connect with your energy now. But that's what we do all the time. And when you look at infants co-regulate with the caretaker's nervous system. So
Mm.
anybody who has tried to put a baby to sleep when you're stressed, I got to put the laundry in, I have to do the dishes, and I got to help my other kid with the homework, and all the different things that are happening in a normal household. And sometimes we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this baby's not going to sleep. Yeah, the baby isn't going to go to sleep because you're stressed, because that baby's co-regulating with your nervous system.
Wow.
As soon as you take a deep breath and put on, some calming music. We used to always play Frank Sinatra. We had one kid
Mhm.
that would go to sleep to Frank Sinatra, same song every day. And when you put on the music and you take that deep breath, the child says, right? And they go to sleep right away. But that's what happens whenever we have what with all our experiences, right? Whatever happens to our ancestors,
Mm.
that, if you've ever heard Gabor Mate say, it's not what happens to you, it's what
Mhm.
happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you, right? So
Mhm.
the things we that happens to us, if you think that you're out driving and you get to a red light, and here comes this person behind you that is on their phone texting and run right into you. You're just sitting still at a stoplight. And, now every time you get to a stoplight, you're going to keep looking in your rear view mirror like, oh my gosh, is the person
Yeah.
behind me stopping? Right? Because we get affected by that because it's a trauma. So now we become this kind of hyper vigilant when we're driving. We're always looking in the rear view mirror every time we stop the car because we don't want that to happen again. But that's what happens with all our actions and interactions,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
what happens to our ancestors. So if we look at there was a great study back in 2013. If you want to interrupt me at some point, just like cut me off because
I will, but I'm
I'm kind of on a
fascinated. So
roll.
I'm sitting
So
here. Yes, yes.
there was a great study back in 2013 that was called Epigenetic Inheritance of Ancestral Odor Fear Conditioning.
Oh,
And what they did, and it was a study led by Brian Diaz at the Emory University School of Medicine in Atlanta, Georgia. It was published in Nature of Neuroscience in 2013 for anybody who wants to look that up. But what they did is they took male mice and then they exposed them to a cherry blossom smell. And every time they smelled the cherry blossom smell, they would give them an electric shock. So, of course, the mice is going to avoid the cherry blossom smell because they're like, wow, I don't want another electric shock, right? Avoid the cherry blossom smell. Well, then they took the sperm from the male mice, artificially inseminated the female mice. So they didn't even, there was no communication with the male mice saying, hey, don't go to the cherry blossom smell. No, they didn't even get to meet. They
right.
just took the sperm, put it in the female mice, and then those mice pups that came out were, anxious around the cherry blossom smell and avoiding it, even though they had never been exposed to it. But not only that, those baby mice had more receptors so that it's called an M71 receptor in this case, but they had more of the receptors so they could smell the cherry blossom smell at even a lower level. So they became like hyper conditioned to the cherry blossom smell so that they would be safe. Now think about everything on all the trauma that happened to our ancestors. And in
Yeah.
our generation, all our parents were part of World War II in one or another way, right? And there was so much trauma and war times and all these different things that happened to them. And then, yeah, that's going to get passed down. It's going to get passed down on the DNA. It's going to get passed down the way that that they interact with you as a child. When you have more than one child, each child has a different mother and father because the mother and father in that family is also developing. So if you have, five kids over a span of 10 years, that those parents aren't the same parents they were to the first child as they are to the last child
Yeah.
because they're growing and changing too. But and so all those interactions and actions and reactions and interactions of our ancestors make a difference. And all the things that our parents and grandparents and people that came before us, things that were traumatic for them, or they weren't treated right, or they were unhappy in their relationship, or whatever it is, that's going to, if they don't resolve that, that's going to, some of that's going to get passed down. But
Okay.
don't panic if you have, a crazy family and they're thinking you have 100 things on your plate. You probably didn't take all of them. Okay. You probably took like five or something, right?
Okay. I do want to interrupt just a second because
Mhm.
I know that this has to do with emotions, and can it also be physical ailments
Mhm.
that we have inherited or think we have inherited as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it can. So you always have to be careful, right? When people say, I have this physical condition. Well, it might be related to like an ancestral thing, right? But it might also be just related to the environment and the food you ate, or
Right.
something else. So you can't just draw a conclusion. But what I tell people is working on things ancestrally is always going to help, right? It's like
Yeah.
saying meditation is going to help. When people get sick, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
Like put all, just combine everything that you can do to create healing in your life. So it's never just one thing, but yeah, you can have a physical thing. Makes me think, many times we Kendraya. So I developed Kendraya,
Okay, wait,
ancestral healing.
before we go into Kendraya, I just have to say this because it came to me as a personal example for other people listening. I took a class in college called Literature of the Holocaust. And I grew up in a Christian house. I actually grew up in a spiritualist household, so I was not of Jewish descent that I knew of. I cried every day in that class. It
Mm-hmm.
affected me so deeply. Let's fast forward 10 years ago. I did my DNA because I had been adopted, half Jewish,
Yeah.
half Ashkenazi Jew. I have chills right now. And obviously, it was affecting me on some level because I probably had ancestors in the Holocaust or,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
affected by the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so fascinating because I think we all need to heal whatever it is, but especially in cases like that. So you have created enough of me, but I just wanted to share that if
Yeah.
people have some sort of strange thing, it could be ancestral and you not even know it. But Kendraya, I know you've been working with ancestral healing for a while. However, you have now created your own modality, right?
Mhm.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's the way I look at it, there's three parts to it. The way I work, right? Because I studied mediumship at Arthur Findlay College and I'm a medium. So the way I work with ancestral healing is the cognitive, the mind, what patterns do I see? How is this passed down? How does this relate? Ancestral healing itself is a form of counseling. So, and I studied that, but I've combined that with the modality of basically mediumship or intuition
Yeah.
and somatic awareness because we hold, why is it that every time somebody pulls away from you, you get pressure in your chest? Or why is it that you clench your jaw a lot? A lot of people have TMJ.
Yeah.
Like, where is that? Is it, where did it come from? Right. So when we look at, think of TMJ. What's TMJ telling you? Well, either you were clenching down because you could not, it wasn't safe to be heard. It wasn't safe to speak up. So you're just going to hold everything in, right? But sometimes it's coming from the ancestors. So the way I look at it is you say, well, who in the family lineage wasn't allowed to speak? If you were allowed to speak, well, then where is it coming from? Because the way I look at it is everything comes from somewhere because everything is connected in the end. So why is it that, you have your jaw clenched? So there was somebody in the lineage that maybe the whole lineage, they weren't allowed to speak up. They weren't allowed to be heard. And so we hold it all inside. So, but we store everything, in our body, or we store things somatically. So let me give you an example. So in Kendraya, I developed like a science informed system to help us guide us cognitively with using our mind. And it's called a light mapping, and each letter stands for something. So L in light stands for lineage break. I stands for interruption of love. G stands for generation of rejection. H stands for hidden alignment. And T stands for transgenerational karma. And now, when I say karma, it's not, the punishment. We think the person ran a red light and then somebody hit the car, right? Up, we say karma, right? It's not that. It's a pattern. It's like a broken record. It's playing the pattern. It's unhealed consequences from the past.
Mm.
Like things get passed down that are unresolved. So, but what happens when we only work cognitively using the counseling method? Well, sometimes we don't know anything about our parents, or we just don't know anything about grandma and grandpa because nobody ever talked about them and they died before you were even born, and we don't know much about it. But when we start tuning in using our, super conscious awareness of using our clairs, our clairvoyance, so, are we seeing things? Are we hearing things? Are we knowing things? We all are intuitive creatures. And many times when I work with people, they'll say, it just feels like it's from my mom's side. And they don't
Yeah.
even know why, right? They
Yeah.
might even have been adopted. I feel like it's my biological mom, right? there is a reason why we have these feelings, why we're getting those hits. Just like we were talking in the beginning, are we getting that hit? Like, the 5 second rule, like, oh yeah, I want to do this, right? But that all these intuitive hits are a guide for us. And
Mhm.
sometimes we don't know things about our ancestors, but if we get those intuitive hits, we can incorporate those. And then we have the somatic, like, where is this living in my body? Why is it that, I feel this way when when I have to confront someone, or why is that so hard? Well, look at the ancestral patterns and where you came from. So when we pass things down, sometimes we're not even aware of it. So let's say let me tell you a story. So let's say we have a little kid, a 2-year-old girl, and she is, she's the youngest one in her family. Let's say she has older siblings, and her mom gets sick, and it's in the early 1900s, and her mom gets sick, and she dies like within 3 or 4 days. The mom gets pneumonia, antibiotics has not yet been invented.
Mhm.
Mom passes away. So this little kid, who loved her mom, then one day she's just not there, right? So now we have a lineage break because
Mm.
somebody disappears, somebody dies, somebody is sent to war, somebody goes away. And she's the youngest, nobody can care for her. So they put her in an orphanage. So here's this little kid that had this loving mom and loved her mom, and now she's in an orphanage. So this girl adapts because we adapt to our circumstances, right? So what does she learn though? She learns that love is completely unpredictable, right?
Yeah.
It's there one day and the next day it's not. So then she grows up and she has a son, let's say, and she loves her son so much, right? But she doesn't quite know how to get it to him. And the
Yeah.
son knows that mom loves him, but he still feels alone in the world. And he's afraid of being abandoned
Mhm.
and all these different things because that's an interruption of love. Like the love is actually there, right? An interruption of love. Sometimes we can say, well, my mom was not there, or she had issues and she just did not love me and she said so, right? But we can also have an interruption of love where somebody is actually loving the person, but they don't know how to connect because
Got it.
she had an interruption herself. And so that changed her nervous system and she adopted, and she doesn't know how to extend that to her own child. So now this kid grows up, right? He's got a mother wound. He has an interruption of love, and the mom, and because of the lineage break that happened to the mom,
Right.
right? So it just goes on, and then you have another child. Let's say it's a young woman grows up. She's a teenager, and her father tends to drink alcohol on Fridays and Saturdays. He's got a job, he's providing for the family, but Friday, Saturday night, he goes off and gets too much alcohol. And whenever he does that, he yells at the kids and he yells at mom, and he's not fun to be around. Well, this young teenage girl says to herself, well, whatever I do, I'm not going to meet somebody like my dad because I really dislike his behavior and I don't like when he drinks too much alcohol. I'm going to make sure I find someone that's not like that. But so what happens? She's rejecting her dad, says, I'm never going to meet somebody like that. She meets someone, and the person she meets might be quite different. But then what happens is, gets to a certain age, he starts drinking every Friday and Saturday night, exhibits the same behavior like her father did. And she says, how did I end up here?
Mhm.
Why is it that I'm in the same boat, right?
Mhm.
Because two things are happening. She rejected her dad. Whenever we reject things, many times that pattern comes in back. Doesn't
Mhm.
have to, but many times it can, right? It's not like a rule, but it can come back. But also, she has an alignment with her own mother because she's repeating the pattern of her own mom living under the same circumstance where she's being yelled at, just like her mom was being yelled at. Her
Right.
kids are being yelled at, just like she was being yelled at. And so we have the patterns, it's the patterns that get passed down.
You hear
So,
this all the time, Dr. Lotte. You hear
mhm,
about people who marry alcoholics from an alcoholic family and they don't want to, but they keep this cycle.
yeah.
So here comes you with the Kendraya method to help us heal those ancestral wounds. And I know very soon at the end of the month, you're teaching a class on called Kendraya or something like that at the
Hmm.
Shift Network.
Hmm.
Can you give us a little idea of, well, what we could expect either with working with you individually
Hmm.
or in this class? And when you said you're also a medium, which I do know that, when you work with someone individually, say they are not aware of their ancestors like me on
Hmm.
either side, do you incorporate your mediumistic abilities to assist your client
Hmm.
in uncovering their issues or what have you from their ancestors?
Yes, it definitely happens. It's not like, when you're a medium, you don't get to say, "Hey, mom, we want to talk to you." It's
Yeah,
whoever shows up
shows
because the
up.
spirit world are the ones that decide who's going to come. And so sometimes people do come. And that's how I got into ancestral healing to begin with, because I was doing mediumship readings and I had like 4 readings in a row that was the exact same, to the point where you start thinking, am I speaking to the same spirit as I did a few days ago? Like, this is the same story. And then you're like, nope, this is somebody different, right? Because the story was the same literally 4 times in a row. And I got the grandmother, and then I would say, oh, I have your grandmother with me. And she had a really hard life. And her husband, your grandfather, was very abusive. And he was actually physically abusive towards your grandmother and to the children. And one of those kids is your mom. And I said, is this right? Is this correct? And the person says, yes. And then I would say, and then they would show me the next thing. And then I would say, your mom married somebody that was just like her dad. He was also abusive and he hit you and your mom. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. And I had 4 in a row, like 4 or 5 in a row. And that was, what are you trying to tell me, spirit world? So that's how I ended up studying ancestral healing to begin with,
Okay.
years back, and learned about how patterns are passed down, and the different patterns that we see that are very common. And then working with all of that, I realized, I'm really incorporating my mediumship and I'm incorporating feeling things in my body. And then working with clients and say, do you feel that in your body? And, yes, I do feel it. Where do you feel it? Right. And so that's how Kendraya came about, because when we use all of our senses, our own intuition and our own somatic experience and our cognitive mind, that's how we can really get to the bottom of where is it coming from? Sometimes we know, right? Sometimes we've heard the story. Well, this is clear. The writing is on the wall. This was my dad, and he came from this family, and I know everything about my grandparents that lived next door, right? And we can cognitively piece it together. But sometimes, many times, we don't know a lot about our families. I
Right.
grew up in a family that was very tight family, but I barely know anything about either of my grandfathers, because one passed away when I was 3 and one passed away long before I was even born. Nobody ever really talked much about them, right? So I have to dig up to ask my cousins, my brothers, like, do you guys know anything about these people? Because, nobody ever talks about them. And there's always, I'm going to say, some kind of shame factor about it. There was something they didn't like. And so they just don't talk about it. They weren't sharing information about it. So many times we don't know.
Right.
But then when we do, in the class I'm going to be teaching, it's going to be so fun, because in this class that I'm going to teach for the Shift Network, it starts February 23rd. We're really going to dive into not just, understanding the patterns, but working a lot with our intuitive abilities. And I'm going to teach people, which one is your strongest clair. Do you see things? Do you hear things? Do you know things? Do you feel it? And everybody has these abilities, right? Everybody is intuitive. It's just like we all know how to sing, but we're not all going to be Taylor Swift, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
like, but we can all sing, right? And we all have intuitive abilities. We all have clairs. It's just a matter of learning how to use them. So if, I wish they taught this in schools, like from the
Right. Me
beginning,
too.
we
Me
would be
too.
we would
Yeah.
be so much better off, because we're taught to not listen to our intuition and we just do as we're told.
Right.
But when we open that door, it's amazing how much information we can get. And I mean, I still get information about my own families as I'm developing the course for the Shift Network. I'm like, let me tune into this for a minute. And I'm like, I never thought of this. Oh, look at that. That's my mother's lineage and that's my father's lineage. Yeah, they are very different. And it's interesting because as much as I spend so much time working with this, and I'm still learning. I feel like once you have the tools, right?
Yeah.
Once you start having the tools, you start seeing things, you start understanding. You say, oh, wait a second, my best friend has this issue. Now I see it, right? And I've been told that
Yeah.
when I've taught these classes before for the Shift Network, and people will come back the next week and say, I was with my best friend this weekend and now I can see her wound. Like she has this issue because we create that awareness of where the issue is coming from. But
Okay.
once we see it, we can't undo it. It's like we're just peeling that
It's
onion
open.
constantly.
We're
Yep.
open to receiving it. So you begin with, just so people have an idea of how they would go through this course with you, or they can, I know, book individually. You have a lot of
Mhm.
individual sessions. So you start by opening intuition. And I think that's brilliant because I was like, how do you know? And so that would help us to understand maybe where our foibles or our
Right.
traumas came from. And then you go into, I mean, you don't have to, do the whole outline because I know that, and I will publish this. Today is the 6th, and I will try to get it out today or tomorrow because you also have a little preview of the class on the 8th coming out, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. On the 8th, we have a free introductory event where I'm talking about the course to Stephen Deenan, who is the founder of the Shift Network. And we talk about, what we're going to do in the course. And I also take people on a journey or a
Oh,
guided meditation to tune into your maternal line and your paternal line and see what's coming through. And it's very interesting because it's fascinating. Like I said, when I put these things together myself, I'm still getting hits, and I've been
yeah.
doing this for years. And it's fascinating because it makes it's like aha moments. Like once you create that awareness. But anyway, it's going to be it's a free event, and it's going to be really fun. And then if you want to sign up for the course, you'll get the link to that when you sign up for the free event. And the course starts on Monday, February 23rd, and it's going to be 11 a.m. Pacific time. So depending on where you are in the world. So
Yeah. And they'll
11
be
Pacific.
recorded. I assume it's
Yes.
recorded as
And
well.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a 7-week course, and each class is 90 minutes long. And for 60 minutes, I teach and I take you on. It's a very interactive class, but you don't work with other people. You just work with yourself. You don't have to have your camera on if you're shy. You don't have to have your mic on. Everybody is muted until we get to the questions, the last 30 minutes. And if you have a question, you can ask a question. But if you're shy, you can just be muted and off camera the whole time and
Yeah.
sip your coffee and take notes and do the exercises and just have fun with it. And if you're one of those people that love to interact with other people, this is your chance to just dive in and say, hey, this is what I experienced. Did anybody else have this, experience? And then we also have a closed group on the Shift Network platform. So it's like a closed Facebook group. They used to have it on Facebook, but now they have their own platform. And everybody in the course can be part of that group. And you can ask questions in the group too. So, let's say you couldn't make the live class that day and you're watching the recording, or you live in a time zone where it's in the middle of the night for you. That's another way you can ask questions, because I'll get on there a couple of times a week. So, say, oh, I'm not understanding what this means, or, and
Right.
we can have conversations that way too. So it's a really great class, and it's going to be a lot of fun because it's highly interactive.
Yeah.
And we're also working on our intuitive abilities, and we're healing our ancestral wounds. So it's one of those classes that it's highly interactive and fun, but also we're creating healing. But when we create healing for ourselves, right, we're all connected. Because remember how we co-regulate with everyone, and we can change the tone in a room if we're in a good mood,
Yeah.
right? That's what happens when you create healing. When you work on your own wounds, on your own struggles yourself, something changes when we create that aha moment and we say, now I see why I struggle with this. I don't have to do this anymore.
And then, so people can expect to actually get some ancestral healing and learn how to do it on their own after
Yeah.
the class is over. And
Yes.
also, I believe this is true. You are not only healing yourself, you're healing the generations below you, like your children.
Yes.
You're also beginning the healing process for everyone. Is that
Mhm.
right?
Yes. So the healing goes backwards and forwards in time. So the last class we do a long journey. So I'll be taking you on journey. Like the last three classes, it's going to be more focused on one of your own struggles.
Mm.
And then in this last class, we do kind of what I call a master healing session, where I guide you on a deep meditation journey where we release these wounds
Ooh.
that have come up with.
Is that
So
sort of, does that incorporate shamanism in it? Because when you talk about going on a journey, I think of a shamanic journey.
yeah, so it's kind of that's what I call them guided shamanic meditation journeys
Oh, okay.
because it's the shaman part of me that comes in and takes you on a journey. But if you've never done a journey, right, it's hard to like, what am I supposed to do here?
Right.
Right. And so I guide you on the journey. I tell you, okay, now we're going to release the wound. Now you're going to talk to the person where you think this wound came from. This is what you're going to say, basically. And then
Mm.
I leave you. So it's very guided. And then you kind of just communicate or you send telepathically out, right, what it is that you're releasing that you have already written down, and we've created healing sentences for it, and you're well prepared by the time we get to this last class. But then that's how we release those wounds. But the interesting part is that, when we work this way and when we create healing, I mean, I've seen the most miraculous healings of people saying, or people that I've worked with individually, or people that have been in my classes, I haven't talked to my mom in 10 years. And we do a healing. And then what happens? 2 weeks go by and I get an email. Guess what? I just talked to my mom.
Yeah.
And then, a couple of months go by or like a year goes by and I see the client again. And they say, oh, we're best friends now. Like I
Oh,
talk to my mom every day. And it's fascinating. And I see it with kids that have cut off communication with their parents. And the mother is saying, I don't know what to do. I can see what's going on. And I don't know how to fix it because I'll text, I'll email, but I don't get any responses. And I've had people like that too. We do a healing, and then 2 weeks goes by, I get an email saying, guess who just called me? That kid
wow.
who hasn't spoken to me in 5 years. So I'm going to say this is why I spoke about the physicist that got the Nobel Prize and we threw our oranges to the Las Vegas
Uh-huh.
Strip, right? Because we're all connected. And
Right.
so it's not any different than you walking into the room being in a good mood because people tune into that. They feel
Yeah.
that change. They're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be in a bad mood anymore. I'm gonna hook up with Kim's energy here,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
it's the same thing when we create healing for ourselves. We change the people around us. And it doesn't matter if they're not even in the same house. And I'm gonna say that's the physics part, right?
Yeah.
But that's the interesting part is that when we look at the world we're living today, especially in the United States, which is a little bit upside down right now,
Yeah.
and a lot of chaos and a lot of craziness going on, right? A lot of division. And, it happens for a reason because something good is going to come out of this because just like always, we have to go through the mud to get to the sunshine kind of thing.
Right.
And but when we look at the world, right, think if everybody took this step to create healing, if everybody could just focus on themselves, because we often say, I don't understand. I'm so irritated at my partner. I do all the dishes and I've unloaded the dishwasher 3 times today and it's the weekend and my partner never helps out. I have to tell them what to do every time. Couldn't they just take the initiative and help out, right? Common issue.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, ask yourself, why is this happening in the first place? Because it's an ancestral wound. And when you start looking at who are you aligning with? Are you living if this is a woman saying this, are you repeating what your mom lived? Did your mom also have this issue, right? Is it just hidden alignment? But there's always a reason. There's a deeper reason, but we tend to kind of stay on the surface and we say, how do I change this person? Like they never do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
And it's instead of saying, why are we in this situation in the first place? Let's lift the lid and look down and deeper
Yeah.
down and uncover that.
Well, that makes so much sense, especially given the fact that our lives have changed so drastically from the 1950s when women were expected to do all of that and earlier, of
Yeah.
course. And then the evolution of the bra burning, and then, oh,
Mhm.
women's lib. And then
Yeah.
now today, where we really, hopefully, people are expecting more equality. But
Mhm.
I'm sure there are many women, and I'm just using women because
Yeah.
we are them, and you use that example,
Mhm.
who still, feel that they need to do the majority of the housework, and it's
Yes.
probably something they can't speak up about. Anyway, it's
Yes.
fascinating,
Mm-hmm.
and it's time for us to wrap this up. But also a
Mm-hmm.
question: if someone wanted to work with you personally,
Mm-hmm.
would they need, like you're doing 7 weeks, would they get it more condensed in a one-on-one session with you?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different. So, when you do a one-on-one session, it's we're gonna try and fix, as much as we can in that 1 hour.
Yeah,
When you're so you don't get the tools the same way, right? Because we have
right,
to work quickly, and I will use a lot of my knowledge and say, "Oh, this comes from here, this comes from there. This is why. This is what we're going to heal." Do you see this pattern? Do you understand what I'm saying? And then we do a healing journey, but we don't have that much time. So when you do the 7 week course, you get a much deeper understanding and tools to work with for a long time versus more working one on one with me is more like a quick fix,
right,
right? Or I
exactly.
don't have
And
time for the course, but I still want to heal this,
right. And
right?
that's okay. I mean, everybody's different, but it does make sense that you are providing tools so
Yeah.
that we wouldn't have to come back to you time and
Hmm.
again. We would have those tools to continue our
Hmm.
own healing of our own ancestral, you
Yeah.
know, problems, issues, whatever it is. This is fascinating. And I'm like, oh, maybe I want to do this class. Where can people find you?
Drlotte.com, DRLOTTE.com. And if you go there, you'll see, everything that I do. I do lots of different sessions, medical intuitive, ancestral healing, messages from your spirit guide, mentorship, you name it. So there's lots of different options, depending on, what you need help with.
I would think it's safe to say, Dr. Lottie, you have not slowed down. And my big message is I am pro aging and that you are never too old. And you are the prime example of that, going back to med school at 54. And, I just want people to know you're never too old. And maybe it's an ancestral block that you have, that you think you're too old because decades and decades ago,
Yep.
people did not live as long. And
Hmm.
people did think that women were relegated to a rocking chair and were only allowed to knit after 50.
Yes.
So bizarre. So
Yes.
anyway, I will also put the links in my show notes, in the show notes, of course, wherever, you know, people can find you through all those different avenues. And I am so grateful for your time today. I really learned a lot in this 1 hour. So I do know that how much you will learn and take away from a 7 week class. I mean, we didn't do anything
Hmm.
deep, of course, but you gave a great outline of what can be expected. And I think the whys, if people are listening to this and they don't know why yet, well, yeah, that's on you because I get it. We need to heal those wounds. Don't we want to live a freer, more spark filled life? And by clearing our ancestral wounds, I know we can do that.
Absolutely, we can.
Thank you, Dr. Lottie. And I wish you the best of luck with this class. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.